When we travel to Europe, we see many magnificent cathedrals. Sadly, many are no longer in operation, but they've become tourist attractions. We wonder if this is because the believers once gathered there were too comfortable or too complacent, and they lost guard and gradually assimilated into the rest of the world. We look back in the history of the modern church, and we ask, was there anyone who could be described as the only one sober in a drunken world, who could remain awake while everyone was sleeping? Well, the answer is yes. One of them is Dietrich Bonhoeffer. In the 1940s, the Nazi Party, led by Hitler, raged in Germany. Not only the common people succumbed under this tyranny, even the church caved in for survival. But not Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a talented young pastor with profound knowledge in theology. Bonhoeffer was a very smart student, and at the age of 21, he obtained a doctorate degree in theology at the University of Berlin. He became a Lutheran pastor and a lecturer at that university. When Hitler came to power in 1933, Bonhoeffer gave up his academic career and actively participated in the resistance against Nazi rule. He saw the ferocious consequences when the Nazis wanted to abandon God and rely solely on man's own strength to create history. During this disheartened period, he kept thinking about the Sermon on the Mount of Jesus Christ. And as a result of these meditations, he later wrote the book, The Cost of Discipleship. The Chinese translation of the book was named The Price of the Disciples for Following Christ. Well, on April 5th, 1943, Bonhoeffer was taken away by the intelligence agents and held prisoner of Hitler. He demonstrated indomitable courage while in prison and in concentration camps. His selfless love touched everyone he came into contact with. Even the prison guards respected him so much that they would apologize to him for locking his door after inspection. Some guards mailed or smuggled out the poems and the articles that he wrote in prison. The content included his letters to his parents and friends, as well as some personal thoughts and feelings in poems. After his martyrdom, his friends compiled these works and published the popular Letters and Papers from Prison. Dietrich Bonhoeffer had written 9 poems to his friends while in prison. The last one was entitled New Year 1945. It was written in a Gestapo prison in December 1944 when Berlin was under severe raid. After his death, German musician Siegfried Fietz adapted and composed it into a hymn, later translated into Chinese by Pastor Linghang Shen. The lyrics of this first section say, "With every power for good to stay and guide me, comforted and inspired beyond all fear, I'll live these days with you in thought beside me and pass with you into the coming year. While all the powers of good aid and attend us, boldly we'll face the future, be it what may. At even and at morn, God will befriend us, and oh, most surely on each New Year's Day." These lyrics are full of vitality and reaffirming that Bonhoeffer's fervent faith in God never changed, even till death. After 2 years of imprisonment, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was executed at the Flossenburg concentration camp in Germany on April 9, 1945, at the age of 39. 6 years before he was arrested, he had already written that when Christ calls upon a person, he is calling someone to die. Bonhoeffer did set a good example in following Christ to death. Looking at the present days, the late Sister Su Anpei, the Maid of God, wrote emotionally in the preface for the Chinese translation of Bonhoeffer's book, The Cost of Discipleship. She wrote, "Today, there are too many Christian churchgoers, but too few disciples of Christ. Too many wanting to be carried to heaven, too few are willing to bear the cross. Too many who want to receive God's grace, power, and comfort, and too few are willing to pay any price." Those words she wrote are worthy of our reflection and our review. Well, 3 weeks after Bonhoeffer's death, Hitler, the head of the Nazi Party who ordered his execution, committed suicide. On May 7th of the same year, the war ended, and although Bonhoeffer did not live to welcome the victory, he had no regrets. Before he died, he said, "This is the end, But for me, this is only the beginning of life. Indeed, Bonhoeffer went to Jesus and started a new beginning. Philippians chapter 1, verse 20, in the contemporary English version of the Bible says, "I honestly expect and hope that I will never do anything to be ashamed of. Whether I live or die, I always want to be as brave as I am now and bring honor to Christ." This prayer of the Apostle Paul back in those days were totally fulfilled by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Glory to Christ both in his life and in his death. Let's hope this model and example will serve us and help us wake up from our own comfort and complacency to become true disciples who are willing to pay the price for following Christ.